Abby, did you see my notes I updated?
Nope.
Because you're going to have to talk.
Hi, welcome to today's Tech Up Talks, where we're going to have a conversation with Abigail Posner, who's the director at Google's BrandUnit Creative, and Donnetta Campbell, founder of TheSocialArchitects and also our Tech Up for Women social media architect. Donnetta has fueled social positioning for more than 800 global leaders and multinational brands. Today's topic is There's No Turning Back. Today's brands, business and personal, know that to connect with people on a deep and transformative level, they must embrace the power of social media. But what does that really mean? Donnetta, Abby, you'll have to tell us. Thank you both for being here. And just as one last thing, if you have questions during it, please put them in the Q&A box. Thank you.
You want to start, Donnetta, or you
Sure. Hi.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So I'm going to introduce Abigail Posner, who's a force of nature and a brilliant digital strategist that I was fortunate enough to meet many years ago. I'm not going to say how many because it's a lot. But she has changed my journey, and we do this speech often called Decoding Social, and we just love to play with these ideas, and she's really made the model that I've built much better than it would have been. And she does amazing work at Google, and she does her own creative projects, and I'm trying to keep up with her most of my life. So she's a great friend, and we have amazing synaptic play between us, which is a word that Abby uses in her speeches in a different way than I do. And we're thrilled to be here with you today. Did I miss anything, Abby?
That was awesome. First of all, thank you all for having me here. Thank you, Donnetta, for being my partner in crime on, I think, pretty much everything that we do. But this is definitely one of our criminal activities, which is decoding social. And I think, you know, we definitely go back. Our friendship goes back. But one of the things that we've always bonded on was the power of social media. Not because, oh, you can get so many likes or because it's so popular and all the kids are talking about it, but because it really does have a profound role. It has a profound role for our lives. It has a profound role for our businesses. And, you know, I really figured this out myself. And then we kind of shared our feelings about that together when we both figured out we were from the same tribe in a way. But I kind of figured this out because going back a few years at Google, one of the things we started to realize was that when it came to technology, a lot of people knew a lot about what people were doing with technology, right? Like how many times they went on their social media feeds, or which social media feeds social media networks they used, or which videos they liked. You know, it was a lot of what I would call what. But no one was really digging into the why. Now, by the way, this quest for the why was a quest whether, you know, it referred to our mobile phones, it referred to virtual reality, YouTube videos, or in this case, social media. So we decided to dig in because it seemed from afar that social media looked like crazy, zany, weirdo, kiddie stuff, right? I mean, what people are doing on Snap and what people were doing on Facebook, I mean, come on, crazy, right? So we said we were going to dig in. And what we found was actually that social media, no matter the platform, if you're talking Facebook, you're talking Twitter, you're talking YouTube, whatever the social media platform you're talking about, they're actually deeply, deeply human. And, you know, that humanity, that sense of humanity is definitely born from the fact that people are very raw and real on social media, sometimes not always for the best reason, but they are. They're very vulnerable on social media. People use a lot of imagery, which is also a very human way of connecting. And it's very real. It's very real time. It's very spontaneous. It's very interactive. So what happens is, what we noticed was that the beauty of social media, whether you're talking about Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snap, you name it, all of what it did was actually help us self-make through others.
Right.
In other words, whatever personal brand I want to share, whatever kind of idea I have, whatever interest I wanted to pursue, I could reach out to people and I get insights, I get feedback, I get ideas. You know, sometimes people say hive mind something. You know, even if it's a picture of my hairdo, right? Donnetta, you'll give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, which makes me realize how I want to show up. So it really is this very collective force of helping each other build who we want to become, whether it's kind of, as I said, seemingly frivolous or about a business venture that you have. People will help you and you will create your sense of self through social media. So because it's such a deeply human place and purposeful place, it is a great place for brands, right? Not just because brands can then communicate in a human way, but the people behind the brands, they themselves as human beings, because it's a very deeply human place, can communicate on behalf of the brand and on behalf of themselves too. So that's kind of like where I think we really connected, Donnetta. And you know, love for you to kind of to jump in here and say, like, well, what have you seen that really brings that to life?
Well, I think, you know, that translating yourself in an authentic way into a social skin, I call it, right, online, creates all kinds of opportunities for a person. And it's really, like you touched on, social's not what we expect, in the sense of the things you hear say about Twitter, all the awful things that go on. We never see those in our world. It's business people talking to business people. It's people who care about purpose, talking about purpose and how to fuel social for good. There's all kinds of layers of conversations that by using hashtags and attaching to those conversations, that you can use social in a very powerful, meaningful way. And you don't ever even see the stuff that you hear on the news. It's not a hostile, scary place like people make it out to be. It's really an amazing, thriving conversation around topics, around people in the same role that you have. If you're a CMO or a CHRO, or if you're a, whatever that is, you can find your community there. And I think that it creates relationships. I know for me and like with you, it's not like we get to see each other that often, but through social, I know all about your life and you know about mine, right? We have an ongoing ability to kind of track each other and be part of each other's lives, especially in a COVID world where we no longer get to sit down and have dinner as often, right? And it gives you a chance also to create your legacy, to use social to kind of put a stake in the ground when you care about something and to create a legacy, make a difference, do your job in a better way, support a charity, save a dog. It can do anything. It really can. It gives people the opportunity to participate in a way that we never imagined. Right. And in my book, I see those as all positives. Now, do I know there's negatives? Yes, but I stay away from those.
I mean, well, and what's also so great about this medium and why it's such a place for self-making is that, like, you don't just put yourself out there once and then you close the book and you're out, right? It's not like you're giving a speech, you walk away, maybe there's a few responses from the audience and you walk away. No, it's happening in real time that you get feedback and then you respond to that feedback and then somebody else gives feedback and you're constantly building and it's all happening in real time. It's very, very dynamic. And, to be able to grow and share and sometimes be vulnerable. I mean, it's so important to be vulnerable. You and I talk about this, that like a lot of times people are afraid to express themselves on social media because they're afraid of how people are going to respond. And it's okay to say, let's say people didn't respond as well as you wanted them to. It's okay for you to then say, you know what? I screwed up, but I have another way of approaching this. Yeah. What about this?
I agree. But I mean, I'm on there every day with hundreds of leaders, right? I've maybe seen that happen in the 5 to 10 years I've been doing this, maybe like 3 times. I mean, and you know me, I'm on all the time. It just isn't, people are so afraid of it, but it's really not in the equation. If you just follow a few simple steps, which will teach people, and today, and also with the free booklet that I can send out to them later that gives them social tips from LinkedIn and Twitter that you helped me put together by using your profile piece for LinkedIn. But I think that it's a great place for brands. because a lot of people are saying now that employees are the new marketing, right? Your employee champions are going to be everything. But it's also a great place for personal brands to build what they believe, what they care about, who they are, their thought leadership platform. So it's kind of a win-win for both. Both of them go up together.
Right.
So the brand you work for and have behind you benefits by you having a strong personal voice.
Totally. And I can't tell you how many times I feel like we have to tell our friends, the clients, right, that
Right.
you have to be more human, right? And people don't connect with things and brands. They connect with human beings.
Right.
Really, right? So this is a place that people expect a sense of humanity. That's kind of the part of the tenets of social media, that is very human. And also because of the dynamism that is created there, you really can project not human necessarily in a sloppy, oh, look at my, warts and all kind of way, but human, like, I'm real, I'm just like you,
Right.
I'm vulnerable. And ultimately, that's what companies need. They need that sense of humanity.
Well, it's credibility, right? It's our people. Our people make us. And that's why, like we touch on, and I know this audience is a really big HR element to it. Social HR, that model you've helped me play with, along with some of our favorite CHROs like Stacey Green and Camelia Thomas, where we're figuring out how employee champions, not only does it help the brand, but it also helps recruiting, retainment, like team building. I mean, social media erases borders. It helps companies that are on a global scale talk to each other, their employees support each other, to participate in some fun, in some sharing ideas, sharing new platforms, creating groups and how those group dynamics can work within the HR structure, things like that. It's a win-win for every side of the equation that I can see, that it just creates a sense of global community. And if you build your community as you open your social channels with like your peer-to-peer networks, right? So if I think, okay, I'm going to open my Twitter handle, and the 5 people I admire are these 5 people, are they on Twitter? Okay, yeah, one of them is. Who do they follow? I'm going to go follow who they follow, because that gives me a head start in starting to gather up the people who are relevant to me, right? And looking at topic keywords, thinking in hashtags like that, everybody that cares about innovation, well, I'm going to go follow them and share their stuff. I'm going to learn from them, and they're going to start seeing me post about that topic too.
Well, and your point about recruiting, it's so important now for young recruits, young talent. I mean, and we all know companies are nothing without their talent. So it's such a war for talent.
Right.
They really do care about the company culture. They really do care about who's going to be their boss and their visions. And so we have to, as companies, we have to be able to express ourselves continually to this new group of very important talent, so that they feel like they can follow, they can follow the same vision that we're trying to create. So I think it's such a powerful tool. I would love for you to share like a few examples, because I know you have so many interesting different clients you work with, maybe from different industries, like how you've been able to take maybe one client where they were, that person was really trepidatious, and how they changed, or maybe another client that had some challenges that, they were able to overcome through social media. Love to hear some of that.
Well, I mean, I'd touch on, like, this week, we're launching a brand new handle for the CHRO of Sony Pictures, our common friend, Stacey Green, who it's called Sony Pics _life. And it's an inclusive culture handle that Sony's going to use for their employees to start talking to each other, sharing ideas, keeping that engagement and that connection together that they have during a time when they're maybe not all together in the same room, or not traveling and seeing all of the global places that they work together. So, I see social as a way where it can help, bridge over some of the things we're going through now, and where as they're figuring out how to respond to the big social issues out there, and we're sharing those ideas. for them as they're announcing them through social in a conversational way, and listening to what people, what the feedback is and how that's going to work and how it's going to change things for people and how it's going to move the dial. And it's just so much more credible and relevant, I think, than I come from a PR background, right? And PR was always the thing I loved about it was about credibility. It wasn't what you could pay for and make happen. And so earned influencers, and I'm not into influencers that are like movie stars or Kardashians or whatever. That to me, comes and goes. But it's earned influencers like you and Don Pratt, who runs this session, others who have a big voice, a big platform, that are changing the dynamics and the way things are done that should be heard by millions, right? So we worked on models trying to figure out like how to take it out of the room to millions of listeners if you're talking in a small setting, how to take that audience with you if you're going to have a book coming out so that audience grows every time you speak. And you're not just meeting them, taking some business cards with your head spinning and never talking to them again.
Oh, you have a good example of someone who you built their following and that person went to a different company. So what happened?
Well, I don't think I can name names. So
no, you can't.
Let's not go there. And that's not my goal.
No. But how did you
build their following so they benefit the brand they're at, right? And the platform they care about.
So they were able. What I'm saying is they were.
Don't get me in trouble now.
No. I'm just saying people are able to even go beyond their companies, is what I'm saying, to build a presence. Yeah, so that they can shift. Right. So they can naturally shift with their following. Right, which is great.
And it attracts talent, right? You can attract talent from other places using social, but I wouldn't put that as my frontline pitch. But that is something that I think happens. The more companies out there and talking, that inclusive culture, like you said, is resonating through. People want to work there, right? You see all this cool stuff coming out of Sony Pictures. It's like, I'd love to work there. They do a lot of amazing things, right?
Exactly.
And it's just I see it too with another client, A&E Networks, we get the honor to work with. I mean, we really see how these tools can really move those messages through and change the way they're seen and perceived by the public in a good way, right? Sharing a lot about them in all the right places.
Yeah. There's one thing that you also do super well that that I think is special and really plays into what's so special, human about social media, which is the kind of snowball effect, right? You kind of collect certain people. I'd love for you to describe that. Like a follower just, collects a certain group of people and they follow each other and that builds a groundswell, right? And then they, can you explain that? Because you always do it. I'm not doing justice to that.
Well, no, you are, because it's something that you kind of taught me in the sense of the way you kind of look at humanizing digital, right? It's that happy sharing. It's that like finding your tribe and getting in there and being part of that conversation, and part of your parallel conversation with mine kind of crossed over and figuring all this out, right? So I support a lot of others and then they support me. It's just like if you ride a motorcycle and you wave to other people, or you're in your boat, you wave to other boaters. It's kind of a really cool community.
Yeah.
And that I think that it's like rolling, instead of pushing a boulder up a hill to build something, it's like rolling a snowball down. If you can start with a bunch of generous, like-minded people that will help each other out, right? So we built that ecosystem and it's built on purpose, and we're happy to help any cause. Anybody who wants to move something good and attaches to us, we'll have our group move them because they benefit from that, right? Everybody grows. So that's how we try to help and do a little give back.
You know what? That's a really good point that you brought up, which what we saw in our research around social media and humanizing digital is like 99% of the time, people are actually happy to want to support you, right?
Yeah.
Like literally, like maybe it's 99.9% of the time.
I think they're enthusiastic to support you.
Yeah. So not even do they just look at what you say or read what you say, but they will like it. They will comment on it.
And share it.
And those comments and those likes give you a little gift of energy, right? It's a little burst of energy. And that is so great because then you realize well, what I'm saying has some value. Maybe I'll say a little bit more, right? Because you're getting that good vibe in real time. And I always feel like so much of the news or how people like to talk about social media is that, oh, there's bullying and there's that, there's a little bit, like everything has a little, wrench in it every now and then. But for the most part, like 99% of the time when we did our analyses, people are so happy to want to make others happy. People are so excited to want to support what they say, if they believe it. I'm not saying they do it inauthentically, but there's just something intimate about the experience, and you do feel connected to someone, even though you may not actually know them. You do feel connected because they're giving something of themselves when they put themselves out there. You give something of yourself when you respond. And there's this intimacy, which is very empowering.
And think how valuable that is to your brand, right? If it's the right messaging, to have those touch points with your partners, your consumers, your fellow employees, whatever it may be, there's a huge benefit to that touch point together, right? And with social, you can have that touch point with 5 people, with 1,000 people, with 10,000 people, right? If you're in charge of a 10,000 person workforce, you really could organize it in a way that you could touch most of them in different ways, like empower their voice through workshops, things like that, and encourage them to, if you can trust them at a meeting, you certainly should be able to trust them on a Twitter account. We're not talking about politics or any of the areas that are dangerous, but just to go in and talk about their work, their peers, their industry, what's coming, what the trends are, what the best practices are, things they want to share when they read an article in the journal and they want to say, I like this because it's very simple, but it's a way that big bosses can talk to every person in the mix. And forgive me, my little dog just barked. And
you learn. I feel like that's so powerful for me. Like I really learn based off of people's reactions.
Right.
What's powerful, what's not. Like when I do a speech, and you taught me to do this.
Right.
You taught me always to say in the beginning, like, remember my hashtag, remember my my Twitter handle, which is A Posner, by the way, in case you want to look me up.
There you go.
But I have another one too, but for the sake of this conversation, so I would say, like, go onto LinkedIn, go onto Twitter, give me your thoughts. And not only do I get a slew of reactions, 99.9% of them are positive, but more important, I figure out what was valuable to that speech. So that when I have to rethink that speech, I know because of how they reacted, because of how they responded. And of course, I always respond back and thank them and ask them a little bit more. And we create a relationship. It's great for me as I continue to build my speeches and my career. And again, it's all about self-making through others. So I know that you've got some amazing tips, and I don't want to lose out on time. I'd love for you to share those tips so that I can refresh myself too.
Well, and you're a great example of that, right? Because you and I have been doing this together for a long time. And so when you do a lot of public facing speeches and webinars, things like that, many more than I do, thank God. And you're brilliant, Abigail, at really being human, right? And letting people see you for the raw you, all the good things, and also where they're,
better or worse. Yeah,
no, it's always better. But you have an amazing presence on the stage and also with your audience, like your touch points. And I can see it in the back end of your social. I think you can too, in the sense of how many people it affects, how many people write you and like things and impressions you make. I mean, the numbers are just huge now, right? Because you've used it really brilliantly. And I think that one of the, I'm happy to talk about some of the tips, but I'd love for you to kind of weigh in on how you've seen that work for you, because we've gone through the journey together, right? Yeah. And I think the hardest part about this for everybody is starting, right? They're a little nervous. Like, I've got a Twitter account. I don't even know the password. I don't know where it is. What if something terrible happens? And it's like, no, really, just talk to some people using it. You really can. I mean, I've got clients that are CEOs to, Oxford professors and tech executives and all kinds of different layers of organizations. And every one of them, I think, has stayed with us for a very long time.
Totally.
And they have had a great experience. And then we have this whole group of ambassadors for purpose. Any group or any person that wants to participate in helping us move messages for good things to grow their network, And they're from all kinds of walks of life. So it's just kind of sharing that journey, right? So I think to start, is really kind of thinking about building your community, right? Getting your Twitter handle up, adding a few hashtags in there. And actually somebody had asked a question. I've got some questions coming in from Dawn. Oh my goodness, I've got quite a few. Like, how do you recommend hashtag optimization? And what's my favorite hashtag, right? So to start with that is you got to start to think in hashtags, right? So when I think in my head, it's like any word that's like business, innovation, technology, it's a hashtag. Like, why wouldn't you? Because it's like a filing cabinet. So every time I use the hashtag technology, I go into the stream of people talking about technology or business or social good or whatever that may be. And my favorite hashtag might be decoding social, which is kind of this conversation that we're having between everybody else. But hashtags really kind of are just the keywords that are important to you and your industry or your causes, right? Whether it's cancer, whether it's COVID-19 conversations, those hashtags are like a water cooler where people gather around and can see everything in the stream that people are talking about. So if I see Abby's A. Posner go by, and mine, by the way, is DC Lead Architect, make sure you follow us both, and make sure you also follow Tech Up for Women, because a lot of our news that's first comes out there first, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm like following a conversation, so if I'm watching this today for the Tech Up Talks hashtag, I can see every comment, everybody in this new community that have joined us today, that if they start following that hashtag and retweeting each other, following each other, starting to connect those dots, they've got a whole new community by the time you and I are done with this session.
Totally.
Right? Now it's a whole new world where there's maybe 100, maybe 50, maybe 300 people that are connected through this common conversation. And they all follow each other. They start tweeting each other. They light up and say, oh my gosh, I love this person. They do what I love to do. I'm going to reach out to them. Or I could do a deal with this person. You know what I mean? It causes all kinds of like cross-pollination. So it's like bringing all those fingers together and rising.
That's such a great point. That's such a great point. Because
Phew.
one of the things we talk about, right, you know, so I give a lot of speeches around creativity and innovation. And one of the things I talk about all the time is really what's at the core of creativity is the interconnection of unlike stimuli, unlike notions, unlike worlds, unlike people, right? And what's so great about the way you work social media is people have something that connects them, but they oftentimes come from different worlds, but it's that interconnection of all these different worlds and then kind of cross-pollination of ideas and concepts and notions that allow for the whole community that weigh in to learn more and come up with new ideas. So that's so powerful. It is.
And we're getting a lot of questions. So if anybody if we don't get to all those questions, just put it on link to us on the Twitter feed and use the hashtags Tech Up Talks and Decoding Social and ask the questions. And I promise we'll answer them even if we don't get to them here. Right. And we'll also
maybe we'll do another session.
Yeah, well, we're doing a live one as soon as Dawn gets to open up the Javits Center again. So we'll do a deeper dive there. But somebody had asked how quick we've been able to turn a brand around. The Harvard Business Review did an article that it only takes 7 touch points to change an impression. So if you can get 7 different powerful voices to show a relevant, real, credible point of view in a positive way, and we only do positive, that you can then change the way people maybe approach something or consider something or look at something. I'd say I could tell you we've seen it happen very quickly, right? So then I'll go back now to the points. I'm trying to answer a few questions as we go through. But so some of the tips that I see is that creating that community as we leave today. Asking for help. Like I'm always happy to lend a hand. You're the same way. Like if somebody has a question, they need some advice how to do their thing, happy to do that, happy to move things along for them. Purpose-led personal brands thrive on social media. If you care about purpose, it's the best way to build your personal brand because everybody's happy to share purpose, right? We're all happy to help something along that's a good, non-controversial thing. So we've built that whole model on this, and we've got a whole network of people willing to kind of follow you, work with you, and join together to make good things happen in the world. You can create high engagement touch points with all your stakeholders through social media. And another tip around that is to, you know, connect, like use people's handles, ask questions, share their stuff, but always link to them and use a hashtag or two, because it's going to take it further and they're going to see that you've shared their stuff and they're going to be grateful for that and maybe connect to you and maybe share your message, that kind of thing, right? So it's kind of, don't forget to add the hashtags and don't forget to link to Abigail if you're talking about Abigail. Don't just write, oh, Abigail Posner said this. Say A Posner, add A Posner, and link to her said this on the Tech Up Talks kind of thing, right? Because that then gives you an opportunity to respond to whoever comments.
Right.
Which you're always thrilled to do because you're glad that somebody heard you. And
right. And then I introduce my whole community, my whole following to that person. And who knows what will happen. Yeah.
Right. And the same model works on LinkedIn, right? You link to people on LinkedIn. So if you're speaking on a panel of 10 people, my favorite thing to do is to do a quote from each of those people or do an overview and then link to them about how brilliant that group was, right? Because then those 10 people all feel really good. Some people call it gamification strategies, but I feel it's more from the heart. If you're really excited about something that people have done as a group, that you can connect all those dots together and then they start to talk about it and share it through their networks.
Right. Can I jump in there?
Yes,
it really is true, because when someone else, like when I do panels and you help me precede the panel and we bring up the other people and we link to the other people who are in the panel, they're so grateful, right? They're so encouraged that they will then chat and say things about you, and the network just grows. It's really a powerful thing when you give a little bit, just a little bit, by liking something people say, adding to what some people say, adding their names, linking them into your comment. It can snowball into such great impact.
It really can. And it is being able to, you know, just share a little bit of your journey, make people see who you are, what your authentic self is, have a little bit of fun with it, especially on Twitter. You can have a lot of fun, right? Twitter's a much more fun a platform where you can share ideas. It's more rapid fire. It's kind of like a TV running by. So it's not like you can't post things in different ways if you're trying to get something important out. And it's a way you can engage with a lot of people without cluttering up your world, right? It doesn't matter. Like LinkedIn's a much more thoughtful, suit and tie type process. At the same time, it's a very powerful way to share key messaging, right? So it's where you really put the important stuff. While Twitter, you could comment on all kinds of things. I see people, some of our favorite people to work with, it's total conversations happening on Twitter, right? And then there's others that just like to post their things and share other people's things. You can use it in a lot of different ways. It's a great amplifier. It's like a bullhorn in a good way, right? Driving into this webinar or driving into a great event, whatever that may be.
Right. And there's something also so serendipitous too that can happen, right? If you're on this feed and you start hearing that something's happening or that there's a webinar happening or, you know, someone introduces you to a book, and that just opens up so many worlds for you too, right?
Recommending things and things like that.
Right.
Somebody just asked, how much time should employees spend on social for their company if it's not their job? I worry about getting clearance if it, you know, from the team, if it's going to take up a lot of time or comments, things like that. I mean, the way I would look at that is just kind of teaching like the kind of workshops we love to do, and I'm happy to do this for any group, is go in and kind of teach the employees how to use it for their personal brands without it being a burden to their brand or their job, right? It's a positive. So they're going to use it the right ways, at the right times, sharing interesting things, but they're not going to live on social. Nobody really does that. I mean, unless they don't have a job.
I mean,
so you just teach them good practices, right?
Right. I mean, I've seen the outcome of your workshops and how people have responded. And I would hope they would even do more on social media. I've never seen that as a challenge, that people are spending too much time on social, whether it's a high profile person or their teams. If anything, it's let's spend more. And we're not saying a ton of their time. It really doesn't take a lot of time. It takes a few seconds here or there.
It's the kind of
So
stuff you do in your downtime, right? It's
Yeah.
either like a group photo or it's I'm sitting here waiting for something to kick in, and while I'm waiting, I can shoot out something. But,
or like, how cool is it that I'm watching this Tech Up for Women conference with, you know, A. Posner and DC, tell me your
lead architect.
Yeah, lead architect, right? Like, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's
So,
giving you a voice in that conversation, right? And it's allowing the community to find you.
right. So
It's
from
empowering that
personal
voice.
experience, I've never seen that as a, you know, from what I've seen in the teams, I've never seen that as a problem.
Yeah. So some of the other tips we've kind of touched on: talent and culture shine on social media, building a relevant community of your peers. It's like the new digital water cooler where key conversations happen. Build the social triggers into your speaking that light up your audience. So tell them your handle as you start your speech. Make sure it's in your slideshow. Invite them to your LinkedIn at the end. Put up an article about the topic you just spoke on so they can go there and invite them to come in and talk about it. Even if it's not your conference, if you're on a panel and you put up an article about your key talking points, which you're going to do anyway, right? It's not going to be that much harder to take your talking points and turn it into a LinkedIn article. You can then invite that audience over there to keep this important conversation going.
Right.
And that way, you've got this whole new group of people that are on there on your social media, engaging and learning from them, and they're learning from you. It's a really neat, dynamic process.
Can I add something to what you said too, which
Sure.
is also hyping your team and what they've delivered, right? So there's nothing better than a manager, than a leader of an organization or of a team that doesn't just talk about him or herself, but talks about what his or her team members did, right? So that's another great forum for social media to say, look at what this team delivered at, you know, Sony Pictures, or look at what this, you know, the article that someone on my team wrote, right?
Right.
So, and that's just a win-win. It makes you look good to your team, it makes you look good to yourself, and it gives you all more fodder to share on the network.
That's true. And it's being generous and gracious, right?
Right.
It really is. That gratitude, being thankful for the good things that happen to you, and also shouting out people who do great things that benefit you or you're impressed with. That means so much to people, and it moves the dial. It does. It makes them work harder. It makes them more excited to be there. It opens up conversations around what they did for your company, whatever that may be, how they saved the world. It's important to share those key things through a very humble approach, really, because I have a lot of leaders who are like, I don't want to go out there and boast myself. I don't want to go out there and talk about me. And it's like, no, it's not about that. It's about you going out there for your people, putting yourself in front of your brand.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. I know that we're at time. Do we have like 30 seconds to answer the last burning question? Is there like a last burning question?
Hold on. Let me see. How do you each incorporate the human contact value of conversation and dialogue in the digital environment? Partners, employees, business people, etc., who work well together are those who actually talk to each other and interact well, just as we are now.
That's a great question. I don't know if we're going to have time to. Okay, so I'm going to do it in 15 seconds. There is no question that human to human, real human to human, sitting next to someone kind of contact is the best. I mean, whenever I get to see Donnetta in real life, we get so much done. We catch up. We have connect. We have fun. But at the same time, the reality that we live in, right, is one that we're now getting much more attuned to and comfortable with these different types of connecting. There's all different types of connecting that, even if they seem inhuman because there's a screen, or inhuman because you're typing, you can still make them feel very human, you know, when you leverage the codes and cues of those particular platforms. So the codes and cues of this platform, right, are that we have to make sure our setting is allows us to feel comfortable, allows us to express ourselves fully. We can't interact necessarily the same way on a real stage, but we can leverage this platform in many ways to still make the conversation sing. When it comes to our phones and social networks, there's still ways to be very human. Sending pictures, for example, is a very emojis, animated GIFs, all of that really can humanize the conversation in some ways, in ways we couldn't do human to human, because they express so much in such a short amount of time. So I would encourage all of us to really dig into, and I have a lot of research on this, dig into how each of these different platforms, human to human, on a big screen, on a small screen, how you can actually leverage them in the most powerful way to create some human connection. There is opportunity there.
And don't you find now in today's world with COVID, like when the dog barks or when the kid runs across the back of the scene, right? I mean, it is a time where you're really getting to know people. I feel closer to a lot of clients who were always too busy to have a lot of touch face-to-face time.
Yeah.
But when you get on video now, you're learning a lot about them. You're
right.
getting to know them in ways you never imagined, and it's really nice. So if you can kind of laugh things off, know that when my dog starts to bark, that it's just one of those moments, whatever that may be, you pivot, right? And you just keep going. And it's an interesting time. And I think post-COVID, it's going to be highly relevant in the sense that whether it's a large event or whether it's a work, how we do education or other things, the virtual does work. It allows people with disabilities to participate in ways we never imagined in business, right? We now know that anybody can really work from home if, you make the situation the right way for them.
Or if you don't have the means to travel to a conference.
Yeah.
Now you don't have to. And by the way, as someone who speaks on a lot of stages,
right? It
takes
the
totally
2,000 people. It can take it out to the millions.
And if someone, goes onto the screen and asks me a question, I get to see their face. I never get to see people's faces in the audience. Only the front row.
That's true. I didn't even think of that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, so we'll end on that, but please connect to us, both of us. And I'm happy to send this little slide deck with advice to anybody that wants it. And anybody that has a great cause, just send it my way and we're happy to support it. And we'll hopefully see you on the stage soon, as soon as Dawn is able to hold these big events that she does so brilliantly, and we'll love to be there.
Well, I am thrilled to have had the two of you today, and I look forward to you jumping on my stage and our Tech Up Talks again soon.
Oh, you bet. Thank you
so much. I appreciate it. And this will be, everyone will be able to watch the recording of this. It'll be up on our site later today. So thank you.
And create a community today. Start connecting to each other. Let's all connect the dots, and everybody tell Dawn to go on Twitter. I've been working on her for months.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.